Hello, good evening. Welcome to Calendar.
Hello, thanks for your company. And here are tonight's main stories.
Turf war. Rail bosses tell residents of a West Yorkshire street they won't be able to use their own gardens for the next 2 years because of a track upgrade.
We think we'll be housebound. You know, with all the work going on, the windows shut at the back. Give us a proper compensation package and then you just get on with the work.
Opposition mounts against plans to build England's biggest wind farm on land in Calderdale.
From the start of the year, I knew we had something special. We get the biggest crowds. It's one of the best places to be.
Reflecting on an extraordinary season for the Sheffield Steelers ice hockey team as they feature in an exclusive Calendar documentary for ITVX.
And unbelievable Chris Kamara is honoured in Wakefield with Freedom of the City for his services to charity. Good evening. For many commuters, the electrification of the railway line between Leeds, Huddersfield and then Manchester can't come soon enough. But for homes on the route, there is a hefty price to pay.
Yes, residents on a road in Huddersfield will lose large parts of their gardens for 2 years while work to a nearby railway line is carried out. Although they agree with the rail improvements, they want more compensation for everything they're giving up and having to put up with. Katie Oscroft reports.
This is your garden, Terry?
Yeah, we've been here now 40 years.
Terry Binns loves his garden, but he's about to lose half of it for 2 years, whilst the Transpennine route upgrade is carried out on the railway line below it. How do you feel about that?
It's terrible. It's terrible. We want to, have our garden for us grandchildren and, and to socialise. And the blue flag at the other side there, that's where they're coming to here.
So you lose all of this in front of us?
All of it for, they say, 2 years.
Terry and his neighbours signed a petition not to stop the work, which will improve commutes to nearby cities, but for what they say is appropriate compensation, after being offered what amounts to £4 a day.
It's a great thing, to be electrified, less noise, quicker for people going to Manchester and over to Leeds. But for us, right, we've got this for 2 years, so we're basically just saying simply compensate us and a proper compensation package for the time that you're going to be here. So we've sort of said we think a reasonable amount is 10,000, which is only just over £12 a day. I think they think it's Deaton, it's a council estate, although most people have bought their houses, they can just come along and do what they like.
In a statement, Network Rail said to facilitate these upgrades, engineers need to strengthen the embankment on either side of the railway, which means that it's necessary for us to access third-party land in some areas. The statement went on, communities are at the heart of our upgrades and played a big role when developing our sustainability strategy. 14 homes like Terry's are affected and are expecting the work to reach them in September. He says it will be a difficult 2 years. What's it going to be like for you whilst this is going on?
Absolutely horrendous. We think we'll be housebound. With all the work going on, the windows shut at the back.
Terry says he knows he'll have to lose a large part of his garden and fears it could be for more than 2 years. But he says he shouldn't have to do it without proper compensation for him and his neighbours. Katie Oscroft, ITV News, Huddersfield.
Well, we're sure this is a story that'll get you talking, and we'd love to hear what you think. What would you do if you lived in one of those houses? You can email us at calendar@itv.com. That's calendar@itv.com. We always love to hear from you on any subject.
We certainly do. Now, dementia is often described as the cruelest disease. Families have to watch as their loved ones fade away.
And with no treatment to slow it down or to stop it, many relatives become carers, not just coping with the emotional distress of what's happening, but the financial cost too, a cost which in our region is expected to double by 2040.
One of them is Made in Chelsea star Gareth Locke. His mother Margaret has dementia and he's been speaking to James Webster.
My mum used to be a top career woman, did absolutely everything for my family, was amazing, one of the most incredible women. Now 70 years later on, she's in a care home. Sadly, she had to go into care home 3 years ago because she started to get violent. It just became too much for my father to cope with on his own because he was coping with it on his own.
Gareth Locke is known to millions of people from his appearances on the reality show Made in Chelsea.
The way that she got Alzheimer's when she was 54, and I've lost that person who was closest to it in my family.
And it is on that programme he's spoken about his mother's dementia.
Now, when the wedding day is coming up, it's just a reminder that she's not going to be there. And it's a reminder that I don't have that with her.
You must miss her, the person she was.
I think, do you know what the absolute killer is? Is you're in the car and you want to call them. And I sit there in the car and I'm like, right, so something's happened in my day, I'm going to call them. And then I'm just like, oh, I can't do that. And that's the real sort of stabbing thing. And it's kind of like, brings it all home that this massive piece in your life is gone.
But for families like Gareth's, new research shows not just the emotional cost of dementia, but the monetary cost too. In Yorkshire and northern Lincolnshire, it's predicted that by 2040, 113,000 people will be living with dementia. The cost of their care ranges between £29,000 and £81,000. That could put the total annual cost here in our region at £6.9 billion.
And that's in terms of unpaid care. Many are having to give up their job or reduce their hours. Some even are having to go to the extent of selling their own home. What we need the government and the NHS to do is to prioritise dementia, to make sure that there's increased capacity in terms of the memory assessment clinics and also the care and support that each individual will need after.
Gareth is an ambassador for the Alzheimer's Society and remembers how important that diagnosis was for his family.
And there was like subtle differences at home. My mum would get very frustrated, she'd get very confused, struggle doing a task or something quite simple that is there for like 2 years before she got a diagnosis. And it was only because we had someone who had been through it, pushed us to get the diagnosis, that we actually knew what was going on. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the medication, we wouldn't have started, anything, like wouldn't have had the awareness.
Well, we have put those concerns about early access to dementia diagnoses to the government. In a statement, the Department of Health said it's working to identify and treat more people, also telling us that dementia is one of 6 conditions which is part of a major new strategy, also adding that by the end of next year, funding for dementia research will double to £160 million a year.
I don't get to be a 35-year-old with my mum who's 70 and have that sort of older relationship. I've now got twins, I've got all of that.
17 years on, your mum must be, to you, an incredibly different person.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things where it's actually, I spoke to my father about this, and it was one of those things you sort of look back on and you think you've been in this for 17 years, and you're almost like, can you remember the person they used to be? So it's incredibly upsetting, and yeah, you do miss her every day.
And that was Gareth Locke there, ending that report by James Webster, who was, of course, talking about his mum. Well, next, if it gets the go-ahead, it would be England's biggest onshore wind farm. But opposition to the controversial plan for Woolshaw Moor in Calderdale is growing.
Tonight, a public meeting will be held in Hebden Bridge to discuss concerns about the impact 65 huge turbines could have on moorland and wildlife. Well, Emma Wilkinson joins us in the studio now. And Emma, just tell us a bit more about the plans that are on the table here.
Well, it would cover a big area, more than 2,000 hectares, and each of the 65 turbines would be up to 200 metres tall. That's a similar height as Blackpool Tower or the Humber Bridge, just to give you a sense of the scale. And the company that wants to do this, Calderdale Wind Farm Limited, thinks the open and exposed landscape would be the perfect location for a wind farm, and claims it would provide enough electricity to power more than 286,000 homes a year. So this would be a very significant project, but one some people are strongly opposed to.
And what are their concerns about it?
Well, if you've been to this area, it is beautiful and wild, it attracts lots of tourists, and some people think this would essentially spoil that. But their concerns go much further than that. They're worried about biodiversity, about nesting birds, and the fact that this is essentially a giant peat bog, and it stores within it 1 million tonnes of carbon. And one campaigner who we spoke to today said that alone should be enough to stop this progressing any further.
So you're putting a wind farm on a site and damaging it, and that makes any proposal on peat inherently less green than a wind farm proposal that is not on peat, because by destroying peat you're releasing carbon, and there are so many other places where a wind farm would be more appropriate.
Well, supporters of this plan point to other similar wind farms elsewhere that they say have been successful despite having to deal with similar issues and concerns. And indeed, the company behind this has said it aims to develop a project that complements the local environment. It's also said it's crucial to hear from local people, and I think local people will have a lot to say at this public meeting this evening. And indeed, I think this debate will continue to intensify until there is a formal planning application submitted, and we expect that to happen at some point later this year.
Okay, Emma, thank you.
Thank you. Now, in other news, police officers who've been patrolling West Yorkshire's motorways in an unmarked lorry have spotted 48 offences in a 4-day operation. The force's road policing unit were in a specially adapted vehicle using the elevated position to observe and film other drivers. Seatbelt, mobile phone and speeding offences were all caught. Officers say that once an offence was seen, the vehicle was then intercepted by a marked police car.
The popularity of esports has boomed in the last decade into an industry worth billions of pounds, and it offers the chance for young people to forge an income and even a career in competitive gaming.
Absolutely, but the sector has raised safeguarding concerns as much of the coaching can be done online, presenting a potential risk of grooming.
So now British Esports has teamed up with the children's charity, the NSPCC, to create new guidelines and help keep budding competitors safe. Nick Smith reports.
The UK's gaming industry is estimated to be worth £7 billion.
Welcome to the ESL National Championships.
And there are more opportunities than ever to turn what most might consider to be a hobby into a serious sport and even a career. 9 in 10 young people in our part of the world play video games regularly. These pupils from Outwood Academy City School in Sheffield recently took part in an esports competition, but their teacher says often parents are none the wiser as to what it actually involves.
There's a lot of parents that are struggling with that gap between what they have known as in the gaming world and what their children are doing online. I think that there's that gap, that age difference. I think some parents maybe not even know what esports is.
The National Esports Performance Campus is helping to create the competitors of the future. Those here see opportunities for fame and glory, and those teaching them realise there's a responsibility to keep them safe.
The esports industry is growing massively in the recent years, and it's for me, because I'm young, it's very easy to get into sort of thing.
Students learn about respect and trust online, and to report on should anything happen that's cause of concern, but ultimately we create a safe environment with good technique and good ways of reporting up should something happen.
But outside of a formal educational structure, minors competing in esports can be vulnerable. So the UK's leading esports body has teamed up with the NSPCC to create a guide of best practice for all, encouraging measures like background checks to reduce the risk of harm.
We see what happens in traditional sport with safeguarding, with coaching, with working with young people, and we want to make sure that happens in esports. There has to be standards around safeguarding, around online safety. That doesn't currently exist in esports anywhere in the world.
We've made great strides through the Child Protection in Sport unit about being able to put those guardrails in place to make sure that young people are safe. So we don't need to wait for something bad to happen. We need to be proactive. So it is about making sure that before something happens, we can step in and make sure that young people can thrive.
Esports as an industry can present huge opportunities for young people, but parents and guardians are being warned to ask the right questions if their children are getting involved, to ensure they can compete in a safe space. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Now, it's been an extraordinary season for many reasons for the Sheffield Steelers ice hockey team. They claimed an incredible clean sweep of titles in what's called the Grand Slam, and here they are. But they've also had to contend with almost unimaginable tragedy following the deaths of 2 players in terrible circumstances.
Well, our sports reporter Chris Dawkes has been speaking to the Steelers for a special film looking back at the season, which is available exclusively on our streaming service ITVX. In a moment, we'll hear from Chris and Steelers coach Aaron Fox about the documentary, which is called Steel. But first of all, here's a sneak peek.
From the start of the year, I knew we had something special. We get the biggest crowds. It's one of the best places to be.
We had guys that wanted to win.
We had a chance to do something special.
Alex was such a close friend, someone I'll never ever forget.
Everyone mourned differently.
The one sacred place and safe place was the rink. That place isn't safe for me anymore.
They've got eyes on all 3 prizes. The Steelers have done it again. Absolutely fantastic season. All the way through, they've just been unbeatable.
How would you sum up the season?
A roller coaster.
Well, Aaron, I have to say, first of all, the trailer there looks absolutely fantastic, doesn't it? If it was a movie, you couldn't write it, could you? Because you've had such great highs and such terrible lows. So when you reflect on the year, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think the winning obviously is the freshest right now. We won the last game of the year there, so we don't have that lull over the summer of waiting to play again because we didn't finish it the right way. To win a Grand Slam is very hard to do in the best of times, and the situations that we went through last year, were pretty tough and very low. So great group of guys and found a way.
Yeah, amazing that you managed to do it. Chris, why was it that you wanted to make a documentary about these guys?
Yeah, I can't pretend, Lara, to be a massive ice hockey fan. I can't tell you the nuances, the history of the game like someone like Aaron could, but I'm a storyteller, aren't I? And what an incredible story this has been throughout the year. You know, triumph over adversity has been around for ages, hasn't it? Going back to David versus Goliath. Exactly, a human story as well. What these guys have been through this year, the tragedy that they've experienced, and to achieve what they've achieved, winning every single trophy available to them, is nothing short of incredible.
And Aaron, I mean, I must pick up on that really, because, you know, to lose Alex and Adam in such tragic circumstances, it's just awful. So how does the team pick itself up from something like that and be so successful?
Yeah, I think there's no blueprint in how we were able to do that. It took a bunch of different leaders within that room, something that will never be forgotten, and what a high character group of people that were part of that.
It's not something that you would wish to live through, but you have lived through it, and it's been such a difficult time. What were you thinking about when you allowed an ITV crew in to document it at such a tricky time?
Yeah, I think that's what's important about our game, and is we're very fan friendly, we're media friendly. I think it's important, if you want to grow the game in this country, to be available in the good times and in some of the harder times. I've seen the documentary. I think it was extremely well done, and it touches on, like you said, some of the highs and lows from our season. Hard watch at times in it, obviously, but a very nice job telling that story.
And the fans, of course, will really appreciate it, because in the past, they've said that perhaps the sport doesn't get the coverage it needs.
They have said that.
Yeah,
many times
well, you're 100% right. I mean, we average close to 8,000 fans a game, which is a huge number. And in saying that, the fans, helped us through that time as well. We went through that together with them, and they needed to mourn by coming back to the rink and showing their support for us. And I'm just happy we were able to to reward them the right way with those 3 trophies.
It's a great way to end the season, isn't it? Thank you so much for talking to us, and all the best for next season as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? Chatting to Aaron and Chris earlier on. What a season full of unprecedented triumph and tragedy for the Sheffield Steelers. And Chris's documentary, of course, is charting it all as a must-watch. You can see it for yourself on our streaming service, ITVX. Scroll down to the news section and select View All, and then choose Calendar as your area. Then you'll be able to see all of our content, including Steel and extraordinary season on the ice.
Yes, I've already watched it, and it is brilliant. Really good. Now then, talk about brilliant. Here she is, Kerry.
Hi, happy Wednesday.
Happy
you okay?
Wednesday.
Not quite as nice today, was it?
Struggled with the
Quite
clouds.
grey, quite miserable.
Struggled a bit with the temperatures, and we've got what we call a waving front, which trying to set over us and skew things a little bit, and then either side you get the warm sunshine and the showers kicking off, and that's pretty much what's happened today. So for most of us it has been disappointingly cloudy, but this was the scene towards West Breton, sort of looking south from Hall Green in Wakefield. A big thank you to Ian Smallwood for the shot. And yes, not everybody had those heavy downpours, but it has been the southern parts of our region, North Nottinghamshire, and just now pushing into the Peak District where we've seen those heavier downpours. And also another pain, weather-wise, is sea fret. Now, this was first thing this morning at Sands End. A big thank you to Pete for sharing. You can just see that low cloud just sitting on the North Sea. Now, the North Sea at the moment is around 10 degrees. Get some warm air from the east over the top of that, and that warm air is cooled by that cold North Sea just on the surface of the temperature, just on the surface of the North Sea. So it basically creates cloud, and it's pretty hard to forecast where it's going to sit for much of the day, like it did yesterday, or where it will push northwards up the coastline, or where it will dissipate. Could do with high pressure. High pressure at the moment is over the Atlantic, and we've got low pressure, which is basically spiralling in around that area of low pressure across the North Sea, the warm air coming across the cold temperatures and giving us that problematic forecast for the next couple of days. Now, this was at the weekend where we did have the high pressure, the dry and the warm conditions. This was at Scarborough. A big thank you to Liz. But look at these shots from Ravenscar looking out towards Robin Hood's Bay. You can see that low cloud just sat there. It has been able to lift, thankfully, with the warm and dry conditions, and that's what you need to get rid of that sea fret.
Great. Love those pictures from Liz,
Absolutely
Neil
brilliant.
and Andrew. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. See you shortly, Kerry. Now then, Chris Kamara, a friend of Calendar, of course, is one of the region's best known and most popular sporting heroes. And today he's been awarded the key to the city of Wakefield for his charity work.
And with his speaking improving after being diagnosed with the condition apraxia, he made an emotional acceptance speech. Sarah Clark has more.
He's one of the sporting world's most beloved figures, and today, during a very emotional ceremony, Chris Kamara was given the freedom of the city of Wakefield, the highest honour a council can give.
I am humble, grateful. I don't feel worthy, but what an honour. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for making it a memorable day. Thank you. When I came here to sign for Leeds United, you couldn't have thought 34 years' time I'd get the freedom of the city. It's just incredible, or someone would say, unbelievable.
It's in recognition of his charity work, raising millions over the years for good causes, and his love of shaky wakey as he refers to it.
Chris has done so much for Wakefield, so much for charity and local charities as well. And just to give a little bit of something back to Chris, it's been an amazing day.
During his 22-year football career, the tough tackling midfielder had stints at Leeds, Bradford City and Sheffield United. He then went on to manage Bradford, taking them to promotion to the First Division in 1996.
Chris Kamara!
Before becoming a much-loved presenter and pundit. Many supporters were there today to see their hero.
He's one of life's good people, yeah. He's just an all-round good egg.
Things like the mental health and speaking about his own barriers, and that sets him apart.
He's an all-round, such a well-known sports person from the local area as well, and he does so much work for charity. I think it's fantastic.
It's fabulous news.
Yeah, it's great news.
Yeah. Well done, Chris.
Yes, indeed.
The honour has only been given to 15 people in 4 decades. So not only is the former player a legend in the sport, but now he's a legend in Wakefield too. Unbelievable, Chris. Sarah Clark, ITV News.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Congratulations, Chris.
Yes.
Absolutely fantastic
Congratulations.
news. And yeah, nice to see. Bit emotional though.
Yeah, he's always been a legend at Calendar, hasn't he?
Absolutely. Now then, here's Kerry with the weather.
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello again. Yes, limited brightness across the region today. Some occasional bits of blue mixed in with our fairly cloudy skies. But although it was dull in Filey, it was nice, says Edward. A big thank you for sharing weather photos at itv.com. And some thinning and breaking of the cloud above Scarborough earlier on this afternoon as well. A big thank you to Sue. As we head through into the latter part of the evening then, we've still got this front pretty much sitting over us, and it generates quite a lot of cloud and some showery outbreaks. Where we've seen that warmer air pushing in from the south, it's sparked off a few heavy showers for the likes of North Nottinghamshire and South Yorkshire during the afternoon, but everything should ease off as we head into the middle part of the night. So it becomes dry, albeit cloudy with a damp feel, and you can see the showers starting to threaten as we head towards dawn. So it's mild, misty and murky as we head into the early hours of tomorrow. Very sun times rising just after 5. Setting just after 9. So as we head into tomorrow, we are expecting it to be a mostly dry story for the start of the day, but cloud will invade, showery outbreaks, and this system, it turns into a warm front, and it's pretty problematic because there's a bit of a question mark about where it will sit. But further north, we're expecting some warm sunny spells, further south, cloudier skies, and the risk of some rain, which will be fairly heavy and persistent throughout the day, and if you're under that, it's going to be a disappointing day. On top of that, always the risk of the low cloud coming in off the North Sea. That'll be the case during the evening, and then it pushes away this little system. Another one though creeping in from the south and the east. So on Friday again, if you're south of that system, sunshine and heavy showers, otherwise cloudy and damp and warm, but hopefully settling down a little bit as we head through the weekend.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Well, there are still bits of oak pollen out there at the moment, but we are coming to the end of the tree pollen season, and we're now forecasting for the grass pollen, which is in its infancy, so it's low for the rest of the week into the weekend. There you go, just watching out for that waving front as we head into tomorrow. It's going to be a bit of a pain again, I think.
Don't fret about the fret.
No, I won't be fretting about that. Thank you very much for watching.
Yeah, we'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.
Bye.